Hello everybody and welcome back. Today on the table we have something of a mystery for us because this knife right here is the CRKT PSYCH. And so this knife is a 2020 release from CRKT, but as 2020 came and went, this knife disappeared off of store shelves. When we go to the CRKT website to this day, we can see a slight message on the product page for the PSYCH here. It says right here, after further review by our engineering team, the production of this specific model has not met our high standards of performance. Therefore, we have discontinued the PSYCH model 7421. So the real mystery here is what caused the CRKT PSYCH to be discontinued literally right after its release. Could it be something to do with the locking mechanism? Could there have been some kind of other issue with manufacture? Maybe some of them were defective in some way, shape, or form. Why do you think this knife was discontinued? So let's check out the CRKT PSYCH. The knife design here is actually pretty gorgeous. I love the way it looks. So take a look at the handles. We have black G10, and they're kind of these coffin-shaped handles with some fluting on it. We have these faux bolsters on both sides as well with a little mini guard on it. The pocket clip is actually quite unique as well because you can see it's not deep carry. It's only one position, but we have this kind of little skull motif on there, which again, you see that on knives from time to time from different designers, but I don't think I've ever seen CRKT do something like this. The glide lock mechanism. So that is the way the knife opens and closes. So let's check that out up close. So here on the show side of the knife, we have this button release mechanism. So once you press this button, it allows you to move the bolster forward. And once the bolster is fully forward, you are able to swing the blade right out of the handle and open the knife. Once the blade is extended, you can push that bolster right back down and it does click and lock back into place and you are left with a fully extended blade on this knife. And once this blade is open, this knife is actually really handsome. I mean, look at this blade here. Our blade length comes in at around 4 inches long and it looks like it's a double-edged dagger design. And even though only one edge is actually sharpened, it does give you that full effect. So we have this length, this fuller going the full length of the blade on both sides. We do have the CRKT logo on the show side, as well as the model name on the reverse. So this is a Ken Steigerwalt design, the PSYCH. So I think that in hand, this knife looks really impressive once it's opened. I mean, the bolster with the faux guards, the dagger-shaped blade, the coffin-shaped handle, it looks really classic, in my opinion. And I think that's what they were going for with this design. So when you want to close the knife, you do have to, again, to press that button, push the bolster forward, and then just like you open the knife, you swing it back shut, and then you can lock the bolster down again. So kind of a complicated mechanism. For a knife that looks so aggressive, it certainly isn't the kind of knife that you would want to carry with you in an aggressive situation, so to speak, because it does take some real muscle memory to get used to manipulating this lock and this design. And so even in owning this knife for several days now, just manipulating the lock and the button and the mechanism, I've noticed some issues with it that maybe could be the reason why it was recalled, but really there's no safety issues in my opinion here. These are just more of just quality of life things, nothing major to really note. So I will say that pushing the button down to unlock the bolster, it's a pretty tough spring in there. So you do have to use some real thumb action to get that button down. But once you push open the bolster, you'll see right here the little catch is kind of beveled inward to help you catch that bolster and lock it in place. Sometimes I would notice when operating the knife, the catch would not fully, I don't know how to say it, the little tab here would not fully catch the bolster, and so would cause the bolster to be pushed up a little bit and definitely out of place. It happens sometimes, but more often than not, it does lock appropriately. But again, sometimes you'll just notice that the bolster doesn't quite catch on that lock, and so it kind of pushes forward. So I think that could create something of a safety issue because when it does that, the blade does not fully lock into place. And I think if you were to use it in that position, thinking it was locked, it could lead to, some negative consequences there. But I think it's more due diligence on the user to make sure that your bolster lock your glide lock is securely in place before you start to use or manipulate the knife. And now if you're in an emergency situation using this knife, that's something you probably won't be able to do. And so maybe that's one of the reasons why this lock was considered, to not meet their standards of performance, so to speak. Really no issues in my opinion. So I'm kind of curious if there were anyone out there who had issues with the PSYCH, because the glide lock is not new to CRKT. They did have some older models that used the same mechanism. They were more gentleman type knives, maybe not something as big as this one right here. So maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe it was nothing to do with the lock at all. Maybe there was just some problem with the run of these knives as they were manufactured overseas. Maybe something was wrong with a certain number of them and they just decided, hey, let's forget it, start from scratch. But it is really a shame to see a model like this go by the wayside so quickly. And there was no fanfare about it. It just kind of quietly disappeared off of shelves. So I'm sure there were some sold out there in that initial week or so when it was first released. But then it seems like they just never restocked it, quietly shelved the knife. I'm actually really glad that CRKT still has their product page up for it so we can at least see and verify that, yes, this was a discontinued knife for reasons of performance quality, I suppose. But in my hand, I think if you are using this knife for regular everyday carry use, or even just as a collector, I don't think you're going to have any issues with it. I think the main issue might be is if you intended to use this as some sort of like a fighting knife or who knows what you might use it for. But anything that would rely on this lock for life or death, this probably isn't the knife you want to use. It looks really cool. I'm sure it could perform really well, but this glide lock is probably not quite ready for prime time yet. It's not, it's not a triad lock like on a cold steel. There's just this little tab keeping it in place, and I could see room for failure there, especially if you do like to fidget and mess around with your mechanisms a lot. I could definitely see the lock potentially, having issues in the future. But I think it's a solid enough design. That's just my opinion there. So tell me what you think about the CRKT PSYCH. So hope you all enjoyed watching this. Tell me what you think. Why do you think the PSYCH was discontinued? Drop me a comment below. Maybe you have better insights than I do. Hope you all have a nice day, everyone. See ya.